The 2024 presidential election cycle has begun with the Iowa caucuses just Monday, and we're going to recap that here today on Speechless. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 23-year-old conservative college graduate now, host of Speechless on multiple radio stations and the podcast here on YouTube. Providing you guys some amazing and fun content consistently. To make sure you don't miss a minute of it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment what you think, share this with your friends, all that fun stuff. But let's get right on into it as we begin here. Trump finished with 51% of the vote yesterday at the Iowa caucuses. Trump finished, out of the Associated Press, Trump finished with 51% of the vote, with 99% of the votes counted. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis won just over 21%, coming in second place, edging former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley at 19%. The results left Trump with a tighter grip on the GOP nomination, though it could take several months for anyone to formally become the party's standard bearer. The magnitude of Trump's victory, however, posed significant questions for both DeSantis and Haley. Neither candidate appeared poised to exit the race, though they leave Iowa struggling to making much progress in trying to become Trump's strongest challenger. Having repeatedly vowed vengeance against his political opponents in recent months, Trump offered a message of unity in his victory speech. He said, "We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative." He said, "We are going to come together. It's going to happen soon." Interesting that Trump would take more of a unifying stance, as the majority of his brand as a political figure has been seen as relatively divisive. And this is coming from somebody who has been a pretty avid Trump supporter for most of my time in politics. More recently, I've been honest, DeSantis has been my pick for 2024. But looking at the commanding lead and the record-breaking lead in this race, it would seem as though Donald Trump is the de facto nominee for president for the Republican Party. However, I do not believe that either of the other candidates that are really making waves right now will step out. They've put too much time, too much effort to really bow out. Now, they will go through likely New Hampshire and South Carolina, and that's when we'll start seeing Nikki Haley potentially drop and maybe DeSantis. DeSantis will probably go a little bit longer, as he has been in second. But while it is seen that Trump is the de facto nominee by not only myself, but a lot of pundits out there, it is important to look at some of the different things going on, or like the exit polls and all that kind of stuff. And so I do want to take a look real quick. Here's the entrance polls from the Iowa caucus. Let's take a look right here, if you guys can see that on my screen. And we can look at the breakdowns of how people actually decided to vote with their caucus right here. So if you look at like gender here, so Trump, yes, had a very commanding lead. And this is where we start looking at 2024's general election. This is where we try to better understand exactly how people might vote in 2024 for the general election. If you look at Trump here, he took a commanding lead of the female vote. Now, if you remember back, if you're old enough to remember 2020, one of the places that Trump did not win was white women, especially suburban white women. And so looking here and seeing that a significant portion of women, 53% of the women that voted, which made up 44% of the total that voted for Trump. They voted for Trump. So at least in terms of Republican voters, when even there was a woman in the race, Nikki Haley, they voted for Trump. He's got a commanding lead, at least with Republican women in this sense. DeSantis took more women than men as well, and Haley even took more women than men. However, Vivek Ramaswamy, who has since dropped out of the race after his not very great performance in Iowa, took much more men than women. Interesting take there. Many are looking at the potential that Vivek could run potentially for president in the future, or even be Trump's VP. So very interesting there. Then if we look at the area types, rural voters were very, very pro-Trump. Obviously, all of them were, but rural especially. Suburban went heavily for DeSantis, notably. Obviously, more the Trump still beat out on there, but notably, suburban areas are really what carried a lot of DeSantis's support in there. While Haley was much more popular, Nikki Haley, in my opinion, rhino establishment fool that is a shill for the military-industrial complex, she took a good portion of the city vote in Iowa. Now we look at age, and this is where I think that it's really important to look and really consider what we're actually looking at with this. So, as you see, Trump had a dominating force, especially it diminished the younger you got, but he was still dominating with pretty much every age group. However, DeSantis won significantly with those in the age groups of 17 to 29. You might be wondering why 17 is in there. Well, if you are 17, or if you're 17 and going to be 18 by the general election, you can participate in the Iowa caucuses and the primary. If you're currently out there and watching and you are 17 and you didn't know that, you can participate in the primary because you'll be old enough by the general election. However, it's interesting to point out that DeSantis took a significant portion of the younger vote. And when I look at this, really, what does it tell me? As somebody who's been fairly vocal and honest about my support heavily for DeSantis, not against Trump. I'm by no means against Trump. If he's the nominee, which it seems like he will be, he will absolutely have my vote in the general. But when we look at DeSantis from dominating the 17 to 29, and you might be wondering to yourself why. You might be somebody in one of these other age groups where you're like, man, I'm so pro-Trump, and Trump tells me that DeSantis is a traitor or something, anything like that. Why would a younger person be so in favor of DeSantis? Well, let's give you a few ideas as to why that is. First off, Trump's age. I got to be honest. For me, that's one of the biggest things that turned me off from Trump for 2024 is his age. Look, I get it. He is not by any means the same as Joe Biden. He is not bumbling around. He's not a fool. He knows where he is most of the time. There's been a few instances in which he's forgotten, but he travels a lot. I'll give him a certain level of a break on that. But Donald Trump is still 78 years old, 77. During his time in office, he'd be as old as Joe Biden has been during his term. As a younger person, that's something I simply don't like. I don't believe that somebody that is in their late 70s to early 80s truly has a good grasp on what it's like to be in the 17 through 29-year-old age demographic in 2020, in the 2020s. I don't believe that. And so Trump's age is absolutely something that someone would consider. A few other things that a younger person might be considering is the longevity of a candidate. And when I say longevity, I mean separately from age, I mean the amount of time that a candidate can actually stay in said position. As we know, a presidential term is 4 years, and the longest, and the term limit would be 2 terms, so for 8 years. And so when you look at DeSantis could run for 2 terms. That's something that has been very appealing for me for a candidate. Trump only would have 1 term in there, and then we would have to go through a whole primary process again, maybe have a rhino like Nikki Haley or Chris Christie or who knows, God forbid, Liz Cheney try to enter the race. And what if that individual got the nomination? No, I'd like to have a strong conservative candidate that can serve for 8 years. Trump can't do that. And so that's another reason why you might have younger people looking to DeSantis. But that's what really raises the question. While many people are celebrating the Trump win in Iowa, and I don't blame you. If you're a strong Trump supporter, I don't blame you. Trump will be a fine candidate, assuming that he is the nominee. However, we look at what will the future of the Republican Party be post-Trump. Trump has been a great leader in the Republican Party since he was running for president in 2015, ultimately won in 2016. He has been a phenomenal representative for the conservative values and for having a backbone in the party. That's what he's really taught the party. However, how much longer does Trump have? Really? He's not going to live forever. We need to be looking at the future of conservatism, the future of the Republican Party, so that we can ensure a future for myself, my children, my grandchildren, etc. And so that's why I think a lot of younger people might have been looking at DeSantis in there. Nikki Haley surprises me with the numbers she's gotten. I would beg to, or I would take the guess that a lot of that has to do with her significant funding from big donors and establishment elites. That would be my guess there. Now, we look at all that. We look at Christians as well. Christians, evangelicals, or born-again Christians took a very, very high percentage of the vote totals. Trump walked away with a solid 53% of those. DeSantis also had a pretty solid 27%. Again, not even close to Trump. Trump blew the water out of the pool in this instance. But I do want to point out something when we talk about Nikki Haley. I've been very, very hard on her in a lot of this. And so I want to point out to something that she said near the end of the race when it was all pretty much called that she had come in third place at this event by 2 points against DeSantis. And so let's take a look and a listen at this clip of Nikki Haley at her speech immediately after recognizing her third place. Just take a look and a listen here.
I can safely say tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
A two-person race? Really? That's what Nikki Haley says. Nikki Haley says this is a two-person race. There's no chance. And look, like I said, I've been a pretty strong supporter of DeSantis throughout the majority of this. But if you look at Iowa and you're using Iowa to judge how this primary is going to go, Trump is going to walk away with it. Trump is going to, that's the way it simply is. Be mad about it. I don't really care. I'm not mad. I'm not elated. I'm realistic. Obviously something that Nikki Haley isn't. And she must be clouded by the vast amount of money that she has being shoved her way for this presidential campaign. Because the fact of the matter is, if you look at the spending for each of the top three campaigns, Trump, DeSantis, Haley, I don't know the exact numbers, I'll be honest. But Trump, DeSantis, Haley, you want to know how the spending ranks for those? I guarantee you, fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I don't know the exact numbers. But I'd be willing to put $100 of my own money. Truth. I'd be willing to put $100 of my own money that Nikki Haley outspent DeSantis or Trump to come in third. Now, this is outside of, that's the bet. That's the bet. Check me on it. Check me on it. Make the bet with me. However, I would also take the gander that DeSantis probably outspent Trump as well. Maybe. I'm not willing to put money on that one. But the grassroots support that Trump has, he doesn't need those massive donors. He doesn't need that. And while I've been critical, and I do think from a standpoint of what I expect of my politicians, Donald Trump should have been attending the debates, Nikki Haley once again has a stupid opinion when it comes to that. And so I'm going to pull up that clip here now. This is Nikki Haley on CNN, I believe, Tuesday morning after the Iowa caucus, being asked about New Hampshire, the future of her campaign, etc. Take a look and a listen at this.
You said this morning there have been 5 debates in the Republican primary so far, and the next one you do will either be against Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Just to put a finer point on it, you're not going to do a debate here in New Hampshire unless Donald Trump is on the stage.
I mean, that's who I'm running against. That's who I want. That's, at the end of the day,
Look, I don't disagree. Again, I don't disagree that Donald Trump should be on those debate stages. He should have to answer questions of the voters and face the criticism from his opponents. However, you're not really even running against him, Nikki. You're not even in the same league. So to say that's who I'm running against, okay, you are, and he should have to answer tougher questions. He shouldn't just be doing town halls. He should have been before the primary and everything. But we're nearing the end. And he's got his lead is not just in poll numbers anymore. His lead is now solidified by the Iowa caucuses. But let's keep listening to what else Nikki has to say.
he's the front runner. He's the one that I'm 7 points away from. He's the one that we're fighting for. There is nobody else I need to debate.
What polls are you looking at that show you 7 points? Because the only ones that I would be able to find, I guarantee you, are funded by, if not your own your own campaign than by the people that fund your campaign. Just saying.
I have had 5 strong debates and have done plenty of them. He can't hide forever. At some point, he's got to get on a debate.
Have you
stage.
told ABC put out a statement saying that they want you to tell them officially by 5 o'clock today? Have you already done that?
They are very aware that I've said, is Donald Trump going to be on that stage? They don't need to be asking me. They need to be asking him. If he's on that stage, I'm there.
Is that the right move?
Absolutely. Look, absolutely. This is a one-on-one race. Donald Trump is chicken. He won't get on the stage. He's afraid to be called and ask questions. He doesn't want to engage with voters. He's assuming that it will all turn out fine. Now, when he realizes it's not turning out fine, that's why the attacks come. They'll throw anything they can at Nikki. But with her background and experience, she's tough as nails. I'm sure if Donald Trump wanted to debate, Nikki would be there literally right now. And if he weren't so chicken, he'd get on the stage. Man.
Look, okay, so they're trying to call him a chicken to try to coax him into doing it. But here's the thing. Nikki Haley in that says that Donald Trump can't hide forever, that he can't hide forever. Look, here's the thing is I've been saying something similar for a lot of this campaign and this campaign season is that Donald Trump should absolutely have to answer for some of the places he failed in his first term. However, we're at a point where he's shown that whether it's hiding or it's a strategic decision, he can do it forever. He can. And he likely will. Because in his current strategy, not going to the debates, which again, I have a personal issue with, he's winning. So why would he? Why would he get on a debate stage? I don't think he's afraid. Look, would a man who's walking away from a double-digit lead in the Iowa caucus, would he be afraid? If you were Patrick Mahomes coming off of a Super Bowl win, would you be worried that somebody in it's playing at some small D3 college is going to come and take your spot as the Kansas City Chiefs starting quarterback? No, you wouldn't, because you are miles ahead. Because you're miles ahead. And that's what's going on with Donald Trump in the Iowa caucuses right now. One thing I do want to discuss as well is, so yes, he does seem to be the de facto nominee. I'll be honest with everybody about that. DeSantis will likely stay in. Nikki, it seems like, isn't backing down, even though she's the one that probably should. Vivek Ramaswamy is out of the race. Asa Hutchinson has also left. A lot of people forgot that he was even still in. But when we look at what's going to happen, what's going on, for the general election in 2024, it would seem as though we were going to have a lot of work to do. I've been clear, 2024 is not going to be an easy year, especially if Trump is the nominee, which he likely will be. If Trump is the nominee, 2024 especially is not going to be an easy year. They're going to throw everything at him and thus everything at those who support him. I've said it up before and I'll say it again. 2020 was COVID and the BLM riots, on top of so many other things. 2016, also, we saw the rise of BLM. And Russia. So, be ready for 2020. The final thing I'd like to say is that if you're out there and you're one of my viewers who is not the biggest Trump fan, I have 2 messages for you. First off, in my opinion, you should get ready to be the biggest Trump fan, or at least a Trump fan, because he'll likely be the Republican nominee. But if you're still holding out hope, I'm a person where I will always say it's not over till it's over. I believe that he'll likely be the nominee. I've been proven by Iowa. However, Iowa was won by Ted Cruz in 2016. So you could still have that hope. But that's just my 2 takeaways for you, and I hope you guys liked the rest of the video. If you did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. And until next time, you've been watching Speechless.